So, all right, let's get started here with vote 1 for Jules' pretty cool late equalizing block. This is going to be vote 1 for this one. No idea what the context is, assuming it's just some random ranked match. However, the blue team is down a goal with 45 seconds left, so vote 1 for this one.
Oh, Jules is nuts. Jules is nuts! What the fuck? Someone clip that. Oh, Jules is nuts. Jules is nuts! What the fuck? Someone clip.
So that's vote 1 right there for Jules. I don't know, it's like not crazy or anything. Seems like a poor clear for sure. Who to ask how to vote. It's definitely not an amazing play. I just thought it was like a pretty nice block. You know, he had to do some work for it, and it was a cool little double touch to set it up in the first place. Definitely not saying it's amazing, but it was kind of cool. So that's vote 1 there. We got vote 2 is this FQ3 3-point pass play. This is going to be vote 2 for this one. Looks like game's just getting going here. Vote 2. That's vote 2 there for a little. That is a 3-point pass play, right? Yeah, a little 3-point pass play from FQ3. I feel like it's shit. What's the concept from biology? Sorry, I'm responding to Satan and Princey here. What's the concept from biology where like a bird has like a really long beak or something, or like has really intense plumage, and it's a thing that's like actually expensive to maintain, and so being able to maintain it is a sign of you know, like being a good mate because you're able to like support this giant plumage or whatever. I feel like it's kind of a thing like that. Like if you just say wow, like yeah, it communicates the message. But like actually taking time to like keyboard mash and all that, it like really shows that you like must have been willing to put in all that effort and all that sort of shit. And it like kind of, you know, proves that you actually were feeling the wow and weren't just like wow, wow, wow. Slow wide 3-man pass play reserving judgment, but a bit meh for sure. They're all pretty meh today. I wouldn't get your hopes up for anything, you know, better than meh. Anyways, now we got vote 3 here. This is the Indy Gaming League spring or summer. I forget which circuit Indy Gaming League is on. Hold on, let me just check real fucking fast. Not that anyone cares, but I just want to be right about it. Spring circuit. Yeah, okay, they're still in the spring circuit. They've been talking about the summer circuit, but they're still in the spring circuit. So this is Indy Gaming League spring circuit, which is basically just a league play. And we are in a Game 5 overtime here between the Cool Dads, who seem to be 4-0, and the Toon Squad, who seem to be 1-2. So a little bit of an upset attempt here for the Toon Squad. We're now 3.5 minutes deep into a Game 5 overtime, and this happens.
But Chum reads that perfectly, and Vague makes the clear.
Good ceiling shot attempt. Man, Chum been making some huge saves on defense. 2 demos, open net, and Chum scores it. 9 shots for him, 3 saves, and he gets the overtime winner. 2 demos off screen by Namdarin, clearing the way, and after 3 minutes and 41 seconds.
Chum reads that perfectly, and Vague makes the clear.
Good ceiling shot attempt. Man, Chum been making some huge saves on defense. 2 demos, open net, and Chum scores it. 9 shots for him, 3 saves, and he gets the overtime winner. 2 demos off screen by Namdarin, clearing the way, and after 3 minutes and...
So the double demo is nice, and you know, 3 minutes deep into Game 5 OT is pretty legit, but I don't know if that counts as not disappointing, Satan. It's not quite as cool as it could have been. In my opinion, it represents being so wowed that you are speechless. the keyboard mashing Shutson, or like just saying wow means you're so wowed that you like can't come up with something to say? It obviously represents my uncontrollable boner flopping onto my keyboard. You have boners somewhat differently from how I get them, but it's possible. Keyboard mashing? Yeah, okay. I guess I could kind of, yeah, it's just like it's like, yeah, like you're short-circuiting, like, I'm feeling so much, I can't process. Like, yeah, I think yeah. Wow just means wow, yeah. It's alright, so that was vote 3 for the Game 5 OT double demo, and then last up here, vote 4 for the PoyosRL Slick Corner double. This game's just getting started too, and it's gonna be vote 4 for this one. Vote 4. Oh shit, sorry, I'm still here, aren't I? Anyways, that's vote 4 for that one there. Sorry, I forgot to go to my secret place so you guys can see it full screen, but I don't think anyone's really getting too hyped about that one, maybe. Is this music an ambulance? I don't know, it's Nujabes, so it's possible. Thing's got a mind of its own, fair enough. It's like the Tumblr I can't even. Yeah, pretty much. It's like the more positive version of that, I guess. It's less like being overwhelmed by shit, and it's more like, you know, I like can't even, like, it's just so cool. Boner flopping, interesting. I mean, I think you take it out, it still kind of flops. The ambulance left, oh well. Mind of its own. Well, I'm an introvert anyway, so if I'm speechless, I'm damn well speechless. Fair enough. Anyways, those are the 4 plays we got today. How you guys feeling about them? Anyone got strong feelings for any of them, or is it kind of just like, I don't know, fuck it, it's one of these two? I mean, let me just start by asking if anyone likes 2 or 4. 2 was this 3-point pass play here. Pops it up, knocks it down, finishes it off around a goalie. That's 2. And then 4 was this corner double here. Nothing too crazy about it, just reads it off the corner nicely and taps it in. So, anyone want to argue for either of those, or can I get rid of those and we can kind of just knock it down to 1 and 3 here? Prince is saying it's 3 or 4 for me. Okay, so Princey kind of likes 4. When my boner flops, as you say, it makes the sound of a church bell. That's a cool little talent right there. Hopefully as loud as a church bell, so like the entire neighborhood, and it like actually dongs out the number of the hour too. So like you're doing it at like 11 p.m. and it's like dong, dong. That would be kind of cool. Everyone's like, oh, good for Shutson, good for him. Glad he's having a nice night. Satan going for 3 just because of the situation. Pants saying 1 is real nice, but I don't think you could score that without the bad clear. Yeah, it does kind of depend on the bad clear. I mean, I think it's like an okay clear. It's definitely not a good clear, but it's like an okay clear. It's not one of those blocks where there's like a guy falling and then someone like hits the ball right into him and he knocks it in. You know, it's like Jules did actually have to like come off the backboard and like find the ball and knock it in. So I don't know, I'm a little bit more okay with it. But yeah, 3's probably my vote too. Poyos looks the best. Chum has the stakes. The other 2 aren't doing it for me. Fair enough. Princey going for Chum. It's fucking loud. Nice. Nah, it's just a subtle ting. And everyone's just like, did you hear something? And then they're like, no. No, we didn't. Don't ask questions. Not gonna lie, I didn't watch any of these plays other than 3. Fair enough, Manhattan. Well, here's 1. I watched 2, so you vote 2, I'll vote 3. It's not a good clear if you hit it at the defender, like he should be clearing it to the other corner behind him, for sure. You didn't miss too much, Pepe. I mean, you say that, but he's like on the wrong side of the ball to hit it to the other clear, no? I mean, I guess he could get around it and knock it behind him. It's definitely not a good clear. Like, I'm with you guys on that. I just feel like, you know, this could definitely have worked out okay, but Jules, the little minx on the backboard there, hopping off and getting that block. Prince is saying it's free space. The other blue dude who's streaming is in that corner too. Yeah. I always imagine that's how a knight sounds when he gets a boner, just tink! And then every time he moves, flexes the wrong way, it tinks again and again. Man, you guys' boners are a lot harder than mine are. Mine have like a sort of hard center, but then there's like a kind of juicy outside, you know, that like would definitely cushion the blow. Like if I were to hit my boner against metal, it wouldn't like dong, it wouldn't be like ringing a bell, it would just like make a type noise. Slinging the car back, his mate's in net with him, he just panicked. Yeah, maybe. Easy to say after the fact, but I think ideally he would read that Jules couldn't finish that and let his partner take it out. Alright, Shutson coming down to number 3-2. So, things we all agree on, no one likes 2, right? I'm getting rid of 2 in just a second. Your boners have lost firmness in your old age. I guess so. I guess I'm just an old floppy man now. It's alright, I'm getting 2 out of there. And then it seems like no one's into 1, right? Anyone want to argue for 1 over here? Or should I get rid of 1 as well? I don't think I've heard anyone have anything nice to say about 1 besides me, and I could leave it. I'm probably on the 3 side. My 18-year-old penis becomes wrought iron. Nice. If your boner is making a ting and not a thud, something's wrong with you. Yeah. I mean, maybe you just got a piercing. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a perfectly viable explanation. But I think if legitimately it's just like so hard that it doesn't even have like a little cushion on the outside, that might be a medical problem. Nightbot said a nice thing about 1. That's true. and it's also just still pissed at Wacon. Looks nice, not play of the day. Yeah, I feel ya. Alright, last call for any kind words on 1 here. But I think it's time for it to go. We gotta get Nightbot some counseling. Yeah, Nightbot's just got PTSD. And just constantly just like, oh, fucking Wacon, oh my god. Just flashes back. Heart starts pounding. Legs start shaking. Poor Nightbot works too much. She really does. She's in every stream all the time. Like, even when they're not live. You can go into a stream when it's not live. And if they have Nightbot, you know, drop a Nightbot command and she'll be like, oh, I got you. Sorry. I was thinking about sleeping, but no, I just chugged a whole bunch of caffeine. It's okay. It's okay. Post-Wacon stress disorder, yeah. You see, while the defender forgot about Jules, still in the air, he certainly didn't forget about him. Exactly. And also, Jules just has magical ballistas now that can rip apart ships. Just because, you know, no one in the old... ballistas were a Roman invention, but then they were just not a thing anymore, and they switched over to cannonballs because everyone forgot about arrows as a technology and was just like, yeah, let's use this vastly inferior giant stone ball instead of the ballistas that would clearly rip apart ships like a motherfucker. What a trash show. What a trash show. On another note, Alec, I found a really good philosophy podcast to listen to while I work out. You see, I'm not a podcast while I work out kind of guy. Sometimes I'll like sit on a bike for a little bit to warm up and be listening to a podcast and then go and start like lifting and I'm still listening to the podcast. I'm always like, oh, why do I like just not have it today? And I go, oh, right, because I'm listening to a podcast. And I put on music and I'm like back in the zone. But nice. Glad you found a good philosophy podcast you like. And yeah, I feel you, Pant. Nightbot pumps that all the time when you're hosting RLCS. It's so funny. Yeah, it has to. You have to get like 15 chat messages between it being done. Like if you just sit in the chat like and it's empty, Nightbot isn't constantly doing that. But as long as there's like something like 50, I forget what I said it to, but something like 15 chat messages in between, it'll do that. And yes, what is the podcast? I assumed you were going to tell me, but if you're waiting for me to ask, this is me asking. It's a sad thought imagining Nightbot as a conscious being. Yeah, definitely. It's not a workout kind of guy. Yeah, it's a valid life choice too. Philosophize This by Stephen West. Okay. Title's cute. Need my music so much better. Yeah, I agree. But I do go for walks sometime and I listen to podcasts on those. Freakonomics is a good podcast? I don't know. I haven't listened to podcasts, but I'm just generally not into the sort of Freakonomics thought sphere. You know what countries it's available in? Are podcasts not available in all countries? Switch back and forth, depends if I'm working out to relieve stress, then I use intense music, or just for the sake of fitness. Okay, fair enough. Heard a lot of people talk about Philosophize This on other podcasts. Interesting. Interesting. Alright, so we got it down to 3 and 4 now. Chum versus Poyos. Looks like 3's got it, but let me just play them back to back, see if anybody wants to, argue for 4 over 3. So here's 3, again, in Game 5 of a league play match in the Indy Gaming League. 3 minutes deep into the Game 5 OT. So this is vote 3.
But Chum reads that perfectly, and Vague makes the clear.
Good ceiling shot attempt. Man, Chum been making some huge saves on defense. 2 demos, open net, and Chum scores it. 9 shots for him, 3 saves, and he gets the overtime winner. 2 demos off screen by Namdarin, clearing the way. And after 3 minutes and...
So that's 3, here's 4. Yeah, I think Shutson's right. We have it down to 3. John Dewey versus Walt Whitman. That sounds pretty interesting. And the 3 Islamic truths. I'm familiar with the 5 pillars of Islam. I don't know what the 3 Islamic truths are. Sounds interesting. I'm not really, looking... People recommend podcasts so fucking often, and I, can barely keep up with the ones that I'm, already really into. So I probably won't ever check it out, but it sounds interesting. Islamic Truths one sounds interesting. Does the same guy get both demos? Yes, he does. It's
41. Vague makes the...
Who is it who gets the demos? Vogue, I think? No, Namdarin gets the demos. And then, yeah, so Mandarin gets the demo. Namdarin gets the demos. Vague gets the setup. And then Chum gets the finish. So it's a nice little 3-point, or not 3-point, but... 3-person team play here with a double demo for a 3 minutes deep into OT Game 5 win. I think we know what we're doing here. The latest episode of the philosophy of the opening scene of an epic show being about these mysterious supervillains that can destroy the world. Then at the end, they just kill them all like they're ordering a pizza and just move on. Man, you are really salty still, Pan, aren't you? I mean, I'm bitter about it too, but it's not infecting my every waking thought type of bitter. Chapo Trap House is number 1 green, and then Citations Needed is when I am caught up on Chapo Trap House, I listen to Citations Needed. I'm also listening to this Wired Game of Thrones podcast these days by my favorite national security writer. Does a Game of Thrones podcast with this Wired entertainment editor. They just sort of, relate Game of Thrones to real world ideas and sort of discuss the real world, themes going on. And it used to be they would actually do that. And now they just talk about how much of a shit show Game of Thrones is and how utterly unrealistic it is. He did a great breakdown of how dumb the long night was from a military standpoint. It sort of glossed over all of the obvious things that everyone is complaining about with the cavalry charge and the placement of artillery and all that sort of thing, and was going much more into detail of unity of command and how it seemed like there was no cohesive strategy to the battle and all the different, I don't know, it's really interesting, and I just love him as a national security reporter. He's on book leave right now, I think, or he's promoting his book, but Spencer Ackerman is his name. Attackerman, I think, is his Twitter handle, but he's a really good follow. You ignored my message, Alec. How was the last episode of American Gods? I still need to see it. Is season 2 on? I'm not keeping track of that. I know I was seeing ads for season 2. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. But I remember really enjoying the last episode of season 1. I thought it came to a really satisfying conclusion. I don't remember it too well though. I am about to circle back and rewatch it, and then I'll have more thoughts on it. But yeah, I'm not watching season 2 as it's airing. I'll wait till it's over and download it or something. This club says Olive, it'll do. I'm not sure who you're talking about, but sure. It's 3 different Islamic definitions of truth / how to acquire truth. Oh, that sounds kind of cool. Okay. Yeah, I didn't ignore it. I just didn't see it. Chapo Trap House is so nice, but they're pretty intense. Oh, they're super intense. I love it. It's just catharsis, basically. For, like, you live in the world and you deal with all these people who are, like, idiots and stupid and think, like, things are okay and, you know, believe dumb things like Joe Biden isn't a terrible person who, you know, who wouldn't just, like, you know, ruin the world if he became president. You have to, like, deal with those people in your life and they say things like, oh, well, Jeff Bezos is rich because the market decided that he should be rich. And then you just, like, you build up all this hatred, and then Chapo Trap House comes out, and it's just, like, this giant hour-long hilarious screech about how terrible all those people are, and it's awesome. They are definitely intense, and I don't, like, recommend it to a general audience, but if you're an angry leftist, it's the place to be. Monstman! Thanks for the follow. Monstman. I really want there to be an A in there, and it to be Monster Man, but it's not. It's Monstman. Mont Saint Man? Is that what it is? Mont Saint Man? I'm going with Mont Saint Man. But anyways, Monst. Actually, no, I'm going with Monst. Citations Needed is really good, man, at Manhattan. If you're looking for something a little bit more toned down, but still pretty heavily lefty. I to be honest, I don't actually process it as that lefty, but other people do. To me, it's like liberal. It's like center left, basically. But it's I think to most people comes off as pretty lefty because, you know, they talk about like what the military actually does and shit like that. Season 2? No, I haven't been watching season 2. It finished? Oh, did it? Oh shit. Well, maybe I'll watch it. I just decided to start rewatching Firefly, so I'm gonna do that first, and then maybe I'll go to rewatching American Gods. Although I don't know, I could stand American Gods. Jeff Bezos is indeed rich. It's so dumb. All the billionaires coming out to pay for Notre Dame. The church is worth billions. Yes, it's incredibly dumb. It's, you know, virtue signaling and posturing and, you know, just you know. I mean, to be honest, like, imagine you're a billionaire. Think about how cool it would be to have helped rebuild the Church of Notre Dame. Like, think about how much of a, like, good person that would make you feel like you've, you know, contributed to, like, the you know, the skyline of Paris and the history of one of the greatest cities in the world and to save one of the greatest architectural treasures in, you know, in Europe. Like, I get it. It's dumb and evil and wrong and bad and they're all pieces of shit. But, like, I can sort of get myself into that headspace of, like, oh, how cool would it be to write a $100 million check to fix Notre Dame? Like, that would be dope as shit. Not as good for the world as writing a $100 million check to do any number of other things. But I kind of get the, like, egotistical, you know, self-centered way it could work. I hate the support around Joe Biden so much. Yeah, like, literally anyone who, like, thinks Joe Biden is a decent candidate should just, like, have their vote taken away, basically. Take their vote away and give it to a prisoner. That's where my politics are right now. Anyone who responds remotely positively to Joe Biden in a poll should lose their ability to vote, and their vote should go to some random prisoner. That's my platform these days. So much about giving to protect the environment instead of the time. Yeah, I mean, any number of other causes. The environment, hungry people, you know, like research on life-saving drugs, campaigns for, you know, like politicians who aren't pieces of shit. So many better things to do with your money than making an old church, you know, have it not be so broken again. Firefly, I keep forgetting to watch that. Dude, it's the best. It's so fucking good. I love it so much. It's like my third time through, I think, but I just love it so much. The Sistine Chapel sucks. I don't know. It's pretty legit. I don't gotta hate on the Sistine Chapels. The man did all that on a ceiling. You know, like, I get that I could do something like that with, not I could, but the people these days could do something like that with Photoshop. What's up, Wacon? And, like, you know, computer art tools, but he did that with a brush on the ceiling of a tall building, and that's pretty fucking legit. Donating money to give water sources to millions of Africans would feel awful. Yeah, no, because then you wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't get to know that you have the power to kill millions of Africans just by doing nothing. So it would take that away from you, and it would be awful. Rather help the people affected by the Paris attacks. Yeah, I mean, there's a billion things that are better. Bet a lot of billionaires have people on the payroll just keeping their eyes out to find the best PR things to donate to solely to enhance their image. Notre Dame was just a gold rush in that department. Yeah, well, most of them have foundations. They have charitable foundations that exist basically as tax dodges and are just, you know, like, ways. I mean, the way philanthropy works is such an interesting fucking racket. where like you have these charitable foundations that are basically just ways of holding on to money so that, you know, you don't get taxed on it and you can pass it down to like your children a little bit easier. And I don't really understand the intricacies of it, but there's a lot of shit that goes on with that. And then also, you know, being on the board of charitable foundations is a really good like networking thing. And it's a way to control the sort of work that charitable organizations do to make sure it's not quite systemic, you know, that it's just sort of like making the world that you've ruined palatable. And that's what charities do when they have, you know, they're basically beholden to the ultra rich people. And so there's this notion that like, oh, well, rich people give all kinds of money to charity, so therefore it's not that bad. But like, no, what they're doing is using that money to entrench their own position and to entrench the system that benefits them, and to actually not deeply and long term help people who need help, but just to sort of look good while actually being deeply selfish. And, you know, I think probably, I don't know who gave money to Notre Dame, but I would guess it was a lot of that sort of shit. What you're missing here is Africans don't have an import-export market that we can exploit, that we haven't exploited already. Yeah. We can exploit cheap labor more than we already are. Yep, pretty much. What's up again, Waycon? China's beating us to it by investing in Africa. Don't think we're not investing in Africa. I mean, again, like, you know, it's hard to compare China and America in those regards, because like America would do that sort of thing through American, not like through, but like the way America does that is American companies go and do exploitive things in Africa. Whereas the way China does it is the Chinese government and its national champions do that. So China as an entity is much more integrated. And it's easy to say, well, look at the One Belt, One Road initiative. It's, you know, investing this much money in this country, this much money in this country, this much money in this country. And for America, you'd have to be like, all right, well, what shell corporation that was set up by the, you know, like board member of this company is bribing this official to create this situation? Like, we're much more sort of like nebulous about it. Whereas China is like, we've got the One Belt One Road initiative. We're going to give $50 billion to Sri Lanka to build a, you know, to renovate their port. And it's a lot easier to sort of, you know, trace the through line through. The ceiling is cool though. Yeah, right, Shetson? I walked in and was like, man, the ceiling is cool though. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, it's like hearing a movie is going to be the best movie ever. And then you go in and you're like, yeah, it was a movie. It didn't change my life, but it was a movie. You walk into the, you know, the Vatican and you're like, oh, it's a ceiling. That's a pretty cool ceiling, but it's still just a ceiling. Like, it's not going to change your life, but it's a pretty legit ceiling. My aunt, who lives in Colorado, donates to a charity called Bitch Mitch, and its whole purpose is to defeat Mitch McConnell in the next election. I find that so funny. Yeah, that's pretty legit right there. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is a legit charity. Yeah, it's a legit charity that makes sure that, like, you know, capitalism never falters. It's a really legit, it really helps all the other, like, CEOs and executives and you know, petty bourgeois people make sure that they can still, you know, oppress the world. And that's an important cause that I'm, for one, am really glad that Bill and Melinda Gates have been donating to. Can we go on more about rich people looking good by giving? My religion paper is on that exact subject. Oh, sure. Give me a little bit more specific of a prompt, because I kind of already shot my wad on that one. Hit roadblock. Finish it off with a broad metaphor for fake philanthropy. Yeah. Take a risk. Already covered that? Oh well. I use the word philanthropy, but it's covered the same ideology of it. Okay. I mean, you say religion paper. Are we talking in the context of a specific religion? Or are we just talking about, like, broadly how, you know, churches are used as a way of sort of, you know, rich people showing off how powerful they are? In the name of showing off how powerful God is. Creation of God section of Sistine Chapel is way smaller than you'd expect, though. Creation of man, yeah. Yeah, well, you know, I don't remember. I know I saw the Sistine Chapel when I was really little, but I don't really remember it. But yeah, that makes sense. I'd imagine all of it is sort of like duller, and because you're used to seeing it. You know, it's like when you go to like a national park with a really famous vista, you know, and you step out to it, and you're like, on some level, you're like, wow, this hits me in a profound way that I, like, you know, can't put into words or whatever. But also then you try to take a picture of it, and it's just like a tiny little thing, and you go look at like the professional photographer version. It's like, what the fuck? How did he do that? That's not what it looked like. Ooh, finally got debt on Audible and started it. It's good shit, man. Just got to start the part talking about how fathers would basically sell their daughters as indentured servants / sex workers for a few years after they got married as a way to pay for the wedding. So fucked. Dude, it's just so full. That's why I love it so much, is it's not an economist or a finance guy writing about the history of money. It's an anthropologist. And he just has all of these like incredible stories about like the actual history, you know, ancient history of how money and economies like developed. That's not just this like thought experiment of like, oh, imagine if money didn't exist. You'd have to barter with people and you'd have 3 chickens and he'd have 1 cow. But what if he didn't want a chicken? Well, that's where money comes in. It's not that bullshit story. It's like, okay, so in Sumatra in 2000 AD, they used to use like sticks with notches carved. I'm making this up, but they would use like sticks with notches carved into them, and you would carve another notch or whatever. And then people were like, oh, well, why do we need the notches? Let's just, you know, use sticks. And it's like an actual history. And then he's like, but over in like Istanbul in the same time period, it's just such a fucking world tour of interesting shit. I love that book so much. I chose Christianity, and I have only covered the first 4 lines of Matthew chapter 6. They have lots of meaning within those few lines. Oh, so you're talking more about like theology than history? I don't know, man. I don't know the Bible that well. I mean, I know the famous bits, but I can't tell you what's going on in Matthew chapter 6 or anything like that. I don't know. You get found taking a photo in there, you get thrown out of the country? Really? They're not allowed to take pictures in the Sistine Chapels? I didn't know that. Obviously one of the world's smallest countries, yeah, but still, yeah. It's a reflection paper. So you just have to like reflect and just like share your thoughts. Man, God, I would crush a thing like that. I wish I had papers. I don't know, I don't think I ever really had papers like that. I must have had some, I just don't really remember. But yeah, that sounds like fun. Just pontificate for hours and hours and hours. If God is real, would a Bible burn my skin if I touched it? I mean, my understanding is that like the biblical version of Satan has nothing to do with the like common modern understanding of Satan. And that like not only, I mean, it's not even just like the Paradise Lost thing of like Satan is just an angel who fell from grace, but that like biblical hell is just like, you know, living without God's love. And it's not like a fire and brimstone, you know, universe. It's just like, you know, yeah, well, God is love, and living without that love is dark and sad and lonely and awful. And if you don't, you know, accept God into your heart, that's the world you live in, is a world without God's, you know, all-consuming love. So I'm gonna go with no. Go check into a motel and find out, yeah. Biblical version of Satan is far more conceptual than a person. It's more like temptation itself. Yeah, I don't know so much about, like, Satan in the Bible. I just know that about hell, basically. But yeah, that makes sense, that Satan is more so... Yeah, right? Because he's like the snake that tempts Adam and Eve in the garden, and then he, like, tempts Jesus in the desert, and... Yeah, so he's just sort of, again, like the Bible is such a great fucking book, and Christians suck so much, and I hate Christianity, but the Bible and like the idea of Jesus as it's presented in there is so fucking great, and this sort of metaphorical idea of like, you know, temptation and being like pulled away from what you know to be right is like actually a really helpful concept to have in your life, and then fucking dumbass like preachers made it into like, oh, there's a horned man who's gonna torture you forever if you don't respect your father. And it's like, fuck off, asshole. Literally, the Catholic Church lost its stranglehold on Europe when the technology to mass print Bibles was like a thing. Like that, there's a lot more to the Reformation than just the printing press, but like a huge factor in the actual development of the Protestant Reformation and the sort of the loss of power of the church was just that people could get Bibles and could read the Bible themselves. It used to be books were really hard to make, and so you just have this one big Bible that sat in a church, and there was like one guy who had access to it, and you'd show up not even every week. They used to go to church a lot more, and he'd tell you about like what was in the Bible and what it had to say about whatever was going on in your community, and you had to kind of just trust him that that's what the Bible said and that's what its like intent was. And then some dude was like, hey, what if we put letters next to each other and just mass printed shit? And then there were just like a whole bunch of Bibles, and everyone gets the Bible, and they're like, what? This motherfucker's selling redemption from sin, like literally selling a piece of paper that says, hey, your sin is cleared. for money, and that's not in here anyways. Fuck this church bullshit. We're gonna start our own fucking thing. Anyways, sorry. I just love the Reformation. So far, I've covered being charitable, having motives, like being charitable for looking good, and being charitable can't be considered charitable if you aren't sacrificing because you aren't losing anything you want. So it's more of being nice than being truly charitable. What about the concept? I mean, it just feels like it fits in with what you're talking about, that like being charitable with the expectation of a heavenly reward isn't really actually charity. And then you sort of take the idea of it's easier for a rich man to, you know, get into heaven, or it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. That, you know, that like the basic idea is that accumulating all of that wealth and being, you know, so hoardy and letting all the suffering go on, and then only like giving money because you think it's the right thing to do and God will let you into heaven, is really just the same thing if you're just sort of accumulating power for yourself and being selfish and not actually being like a charitable, helpful, good person. What about that? Is that enough to round out your paper for you? Obviously in the paper I have it worded better, I'm sure. I lose about 700 words. I need 6 pages. There's some at the end of page 5. Someone who grew up Catholic, I really subscribe to the Nietzschean philosophy of religion that the church only exists to control populations. Yeah, I mean, like, it's, you know, it goes back to, like, the sort of, you know, what the fuck is that dude's name? Charlemagne. The Charlemagnean sort of Holy Roman Empire concept of the divine right of kings and all that. I mean, it's like fairly overt in my mind historically that like the purpose of the church was to justify the you know, the reign of the king, and that they kind of support each other, and the king made the laws and the church controlled people's morality, and they both, you know, strengthened each other and supported each other, and it was this like really strong, you know, system of you know, hegemony. But yes, absolutely, the church itself, you know, again, I fucking love the Bible and Jesus as a teacher and all that, but the church itself, as it developed after, you know, the fall of the Roman Empire and all of that, is very much just a mechanism of social control. Absolutely. You think I graduated college? I really look forward to in 3,000 years after some apocalypse where all our internet is destroyed and one dude finds one surviving copy of Harry Potter and we get a whole new religion. Dude, that's one of my favorite things to think about, of like, what if, you know, like, what if Greek myths were basically like the Avengers of Greek times, and no one actually thought there was like a guy throwing thunder down and like a girl who made the crops grow, but it was just like a fun story to tell. It was like comic books of Greek times, and then, you know, thousands of years from now, they're gonna find like the Avengers and be like, oh wow, they had this whole pantheon of gods. You know, like one was a really rich dude and one was a big monster guy and one was just really good at ninja stuff. I love thinking about shit like that. It's one of my favorite sort of like, you know, hypotheticals. You want to hear something sad? Alita, among others, calls himself a constitutional originist. Alito? Who is this person, Alita? I mean, yeah, that's what I was thinking you meant, but now you're talking about constitutional originalism. I feel like you've got to be talking about Samuel Alito, right? The Supreme Court Justice? He's still, like, around and shit, right? Oh, no, wrong. Yeah, okay. I feel like you're talking about Samuel Alito. And it says you can't interpret a foundational document like that, but also says the Bible is open for interpretation. I can hate gays, but not the other stuff. I mean, to be fair, like, the Bible is written in a very different style from the Constitution and for a very different purpose. I don't know. Not sad, but frustrating. Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. It's not, I don't feel like that's, like, actually hypocritical. I mean, like, fuck him for being dumb and evil. Like, I'm not, you know, like, yeah, sure, fuck him. He's a monster and he sucks. And he's doing bad for the world. But, I feel like, you know, the Constitution was written to be a legal document that would govern a country, and the Bible was just like a collection of some shit some guy said, you know, and like obviously it's a little bit more fair to interpret the stories that some dude told. Like the prodigal son, you know, is very clearly a metaphorical parable. That's the word, a parable that is meant to be interpreted. Whereas, you know, the Constitution, there's no, like, they don't have, I realize you're talking more about things like there are rules in the Bible where it's like, you know, if you plant crops next to each other, you know, you have to be stoned or something like that. but like there aren't parts of the Constitution where they just start telling a story about like a guy who was walking down the road and you know saw a guy who was getting beat up and didn't do anything. There's no little part of the Constitution where they just start talking in parables. So I think it's a little bit fair to say the Bible's open for interpretation, but the Constitution isn't. They're both, you know, that the Constitution is open for interpretation or not open for interpretation is a dumb position, but it's not hypocritical in my mind. I think the time it was written thing should play into the Constitution as well, though. Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, the Constitution's a living document. It's amendable. No one who wrote the Constitution was like, and that's it. Perfect system of government right here. Hundreds of years from now, they should still just be doing exactly what we said. Like motherfucking Thomas Jefferson thought they should rewrite the thing every generation. Like everyone thought that the Constitution would need to change and be updated and all that sort of shit. But, you know, conservative's gonna conserve. You don't think the Bible was written to govern a group of people? I mean, like, yes. My understanding is that the Bible, as we know it now, was sort of created by a sort of like meeting of church elders in somewhere around the 3rd or 4th or 5th century CE, and that it was basically written to be constructed to be the like foundational document of a gigantic cult, and that it was written to control people. Sure, it wasn't written as a set of laws that would govern a specific country's legal system. There's a difference there. Yes, it was written as a sort of code to live by to control people. No, it was not designed as a literal code of laws. It's too open-ended for that, yeah. Maybe to sway morals, exactly. Speaking of creating a pantheon, I've literally finished my degree today, so I'm gonna spend time writing a fantasy book. It's gonna be great. Dude, that's awesome, man. That's dope. That sounds really fun. All right, well, real quick, let me just do this thing. And say congratulations to Chum and his teammates, because you guys are our winners for today. The video I put up on YouTube today is probably gonna surprise some folks. They're used to just seeing us just discussing the plays, and then today's version is gonna be a 40-minute digression into like religion and philanthropy and all that. But you know, that'd be good. Teach those guys what the dailies is really about.